listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review Monday Night Raw from August 7th, 2023. It is the fallout from this past Saturday's SummerSlam pay-per-view, the biggest party of the summer, where we saw Cody Rhodes defeat Brock Lesnar in the rubber match. We saw Seth Rollins retain the World Heavyweight Championship against Finn Baszler, and of course we saw Roman Reigns defeat Jey Uso with, of course, the help of Jey's own brother, Jimmy Uso, and it looks like there's going to be a feud going on over there. But what are my thoughts on Monday Night Raw tonight as a whole? I, surprisingly, really enjoyed this show. There's not a whole lot of bad that I can really say about what went down on this Raw show. Usually, in most weeks, I always criticize Monday Night Raw, and rightfully so, considering the fact that the show is just painful to watch. And honestly, I genuinely believe that this show flowed pretty well, especially in the first hour. The first hour, of course, was commercial-free on this show. We had Cody Rhodes kick off the show, basically setting up a big six-man tag team match, which, regarding Judgment Day, I mean, like, they've been in six-man tag team main events almost every fucking week now. We had an amazing four-way match, a fatal four-way match between, of course, Chad Gable, Matt Riddle, Tommosso, Ciampa, and Ricochet. And, of course, that is for the number one contendership for the Intercontinental Championship. Gable, of course, won the match, and he was, of course, the MVP of this entire match, man. You can tell, man, after that Gunther match that Chad Gable had last week, WWE is wanting to put the rocket strap on Chad Gable. The organic reactions that Chad Gable is getting, not only just Chad Gable, but Alpha Academy as a whole, and now with this whole feud with Imperium, I'm pretty much really enjoying to see what's going to go down, and I'm really enjoying what I'm watching regarding Chad Gable just really transcend and really come out on his own, because yeah, he's been getting the whole Alpha Academy thing over, but really, we all see Chad Gable as a single star. If you want to talk about the next Kurt Angle, it's clearly Chad Gable, not Gable Stevenson. But I'll talk about that as well. Of course, we also had Zoey Stark versus Shayna Baszler. We had, of course, Otis versus Ludwig Kaiser. Ludwig Kaiser is trying to hit on Maxine Dupree. We had an amazing, surprisingly, missed segment with, of course, the megastar himself. That is not an insult. That is just a fact of life. Mr. L.A. Knight. Yeah. It was a phenomenal segment. Of course, they're setting up a program between Miz and L.A. Knight. Miz is a SmackDown talent. It makes no sense why he's on Raw, but WWE doesn't really abide by the brand split, so really, who gives a shit? But nonetheless, it was a phenomenal segment. Judgment Day, teasing JD McDonagh to join the group after he attacked Sami Zayn, basically eliminating Sami Zayn from the six-man tag team match main event. And a lot of tension continuing to brew ever since this past Saturday at SummerSlam with, of course, Damian Priest coming in and technically, not really, causing Finn Baszler the World Heavyweight Championship. So we're going to be talking a lot about everything going on the Raw review. Of course, we also had Shinsuke Nakamura attack Seth Rollins at the end of the show as well. Overall thoughts on this Raw show, I actually really enjoyed Raw tonight. Tonight, Raw was a very, very, very good show. A lot of storyline progression, especially with the JD McDonagh stuff, which I'm finally happy that we're finally getting, because they teased JD McDonagh weeks ago, almost like a couple of months ago, and then they just completely stopped with that, and they were just like, yeah, nobody cares. But then all of a sudden, JD McDonagh is on this show. So we're going to be talking about all that and much more right here on the Raw review. Of course, right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And As the ring referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Of course, if you guys had missed it, the AEW Collision review is up on the channel. I talk about FTR, the current AEW World Tag Team Champions, after defending their titles against Big Bill and Brian Cage. They called out the Young Bucks and challenged them to a match at All In London at Wembley Stadium. Freaking exciting. Samoa Joe laid out the challenge to CM Punk for All In as well. A lot of All In build happening on this Collision show. If you guys haven't checked out the AEW Collision review, the link will be in the description below. Also, the SummerSlam review is up on the channel. Of course, I talk about Tribal Combat. Of course, with Roman Reigns defending his undisputed Universal Championship against main event Jey Uso. If you guys haven't checked out the SummerSlam review, it's damn near 1,000 views. Damn near 1,000 views, and it's actually doing very well in viewership. If you guys haven't checked out the SummerSlam review, the link will be in the description below. All right, let's get on with the Raw review. The show kicks off with, of course, after beating Brock Lesnar in Detroit, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. And the crowd is absolutely loving Cody Rhodes and everything that he does and stands for. The crowd is just up in arms for Cody Rhodes. Every week when he makes his entrance, the crowd just sings his song. You love to see it. And, of course, you have the big whoa. So Cody Rhodes kicks off Raw. He says, so, Minneapolis, Minnesota. What do you want to talk about? He thinks, of course, he wants to talk about one of our own. Let's talk about a beast that has his claws sharpened here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This man became a champion over here. Of course, he's talking about Minneapolis' own Brock Lesnar. Of course, he had the privilege, the honor, and, of course, the misery of standing across the beast and surviving the beast. That's one thing. What happens next, he can never imagine. And he shows them, of course, shaking hands on the Titantron. He talks about how he had a conversation with his mother. And he shared his shock of the moment. And she replied to him, dummy, don't you know what just happened? Brock Lesnar acknowledged you. Ooh, we're now going for the little Easter eggs, huh? After SummerSlam, he feels on top of the world. He feels like he could be anybody in the world. And then the current World Heavyweight Champion, Seth Rollins, comes out. He welcomes us to Monday Night Rollins. Last time he came out here to address his future of the World Heavyweight Championship, he was the first man to go down the aisle and get in his face. Consider this him returning the favor. Then immediately Judgment Day come out. Rhea says they still run Monday Night Raw. Priest says they don't dictate what happens with championships. Senor Money in the Bank does that. Notice how Judgment Day is coming out and there's no Finn Balor. Very interesting. Look what we have over here. We have the most dominant women's world champion in Rhea Ripley, the current North American champion, Dominik Mysterio, he will be wrestling tomorrow night on NXT. And you know what, Cody? You might be done with Brock, but Dirty Dom ain't done with you. He is a workhorse, and he will be defending his title tomorrow night on NXT. And then Dominik faces off with Cody Rhodes. Of course, every single fucking week, Dominik gets the microphone, and the first words every week that comes out of Dominik's mouth, and then he stops, and then the crowd just boos him. Every week it's the same thing. The crowd boos Dominik, but then Balor out of nowhere attacks Seth Rollins. Then JD attacks Seth and Cody, and Sami Zayn comes out for the save. He fights off Priest, but then he clotheslines Priest onto the outside. We then get a back elbow by Dominik. We then get a Cody Cutter by Cody on Dominik. Bro, it's so fucking badass when Cody Rhodes does the Cody Cutter in a fucking suit. Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes team up on Finn Balor. Seth goes for the big boot. Cody gets the microphone. He says he has a solution for this. There's 3 of you, and there's 3 of us standing here. How about tonight in Minneapolis, me and my friend Sami Zayn and the World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins takes on you guys tonight. And the first segment of the show ends. Overall thoughts on this segment. This was not a bad segment whatsoever, of course. Is it getting a little bit repetitive with the 6-man tag team match main event, especially regarding Judgment Day? Absolutely. But I will say, and I've been pretty, I don't want to say outspoken about this, but throughout the past couple of weeks on Raw, yeah, we've been getting like 6-man tag team matches or tag team matches regarding members of Judgment Day. They've all fucking hit. They've been phenomenal matches, man. Judgment Day, of course, is right now on top of being the top faction, or on the verge of becoming the top faction in WWE right now. And, of course, they're teasing a lot of things going on, especially with Judgment Day. Of course, there's a lot of tension regarding Damian Priest and Finn Balor after the events that transpired in the World Heavyweight Championship match at SummerSlam, with Damian Priest basically offering to help Finn Balor and then Finn Balor basically fucking it up. And, of course, they've been teasing JD McDonagh later on this show. But nonetheless, it was a pretty good segment. Of course, this later on is going to lead towards the 6-man tag team match. Moving on, we got probably one of the best things on this entire show. We got a fatal 4-way number 1 contendership match for Gunther's Intercontinental Championship. Now, I did say at the top of this review that the first hour of Monday Night Raw was completely commercial free. So you knew for a fact, since we were going to get a fatal 4-way, we were going to get a fucking banger. The guys in this match were Ricochet, Chad Gable, Tommosso Ciampa, and Matt Riddle. This match was fast-paced as soon as the bell frickin' rang. This was phenomenal. We had a bunch of roll-up reversals by everybody. All 4 men get up on their feet. We get a bunch of Gable chants by the crowd. You can start to really see Chad Gable. Like, we all know the Alpha Academy is over with the audience. It's been that way for months. But Chad Gable alone is starting to get over ever since last week's match that he had with Gunther. Phenomenal stuff. Gable goes for the thank you, and the crowd is doing the thank you. You love to see it. Ciampa proceeds to work on Riddle. Ricochet and Gable exchange a series of strikes. We got a double ankle locks by Riddle and Gable, but then Ciampa and Ricochet escape their own respective ankle locks that they were on. We get a series of technical wrestling abilities by both Riddle and Chad Gable, but then Ciampa comes in. He takes out both men. He boots Riddle. Ricochet then takes out Ciampa off the top. We get a standing moonsault by Ricochet, and we get a cover end and near fall. Ricochet then is in control. Riddle goes for the Fisherman Buster. We get a cover end and near fall when Chad Gable comes in. Gable then drives Riddle down. Ciampa goes for a reverse DDT. We get a cover and a near fall. We get a series of right hands by Ricochet, and then he picks up Ricochet, but he escapes. He drives down Ciampa on the mat, but then we get a cover by Ricochet and a near fall. Ricochet goes to the top rope, but then Riddle comes up the second rope, and then Ciampa comes up the second rope as well, but then Gable comes in. So everybody, when they're taking their turns going up the second rope or the top rope, they apply waist locks behind each other. And of course, when a wrestler applies a waist lock on another wrestler, you already know what that is going to be. It ended up being a fucking super German suplex, a.k.a. a triple German suplex by the one and only, of course, master, the guy that has his own master's degree, Chad Gable. Phenomenal stuff. It was probably the best match or the best spot of the entire match. Of course, Gunther is watching all this transpire backstage. Ricochet, of course, with the triple German suplex spot, fell right on his face on the mat. So that looked pretty brutal. Gable goes for a waist lock. Ciampa misses a knee, but then we get an ankle lock by Gable. Ciampa gets his hand on the bottom rope, but then there was no rope break, of course, in a fatal 4-way match. Gable continues to wrench the ankle of Tommaso Ciampa. Riddle comes in with a kick and then a powerbomb. Followed by a knee, we get a cover and a kick out. Then we get a standing shooting star press by Ricochet. Riddle then takes him out with a T-bone, but then we get a jumping knee by Riddle on Tommaso Ciampa. Riddle then takes Ciampa up to the top rope. Riddle goes to the second rope, and then both men are up. Riddle ends up hitting a superplex on Tommaso Ciampa. Ricochet then goes for the shooting star press, but then at the same time, Gable goes for the flying headbutt, man. If you guys, you know how I talked about this match, how it was all fast-paced in the beginning? Bro, that double spot off the top rope was awesome as hell. I loved that. So after that, both Riddle and Ciampa get the knees up, countering both Ricochet and Chad Gable. We get a double cover by both men in a near fall. All 4 men try to get up on their feet, but then everybody fights each other out. Ciampa stomps onto the foot of Riddle, but then he sends him on the apron. Gable goes for a clothesline on Ricochet on the outside, but then Gable gets sent to the outside. Riddle then ends up going for the floating bro on the outside on Gable, and then we get a cover. He comes back into the ring, and then after that, We go for the Willow's Bell by Ciampa, but then Ricochet takes out Gable on the outside. Ricochet then launches off the top rope, but then he gets caught by Ciampa. He drives his knees onto the back of Ricochet, but then Ricochet goes for the Bro Derek. After that, we get a cover and a kick out when Gable hits the splash off the top. Gable and Riddle exchange strikes. We got a rolling German suplex attempt by Gable. Ricochet comes in with the recoil, and this was the finish. So we get the first rolling German, or the Chase's Theory, I believe that's what it's called. Michael Cole on commentary stated a new finisher. Like I had no idea it was called that. I'm just going to call it the rolling German. We got the rolling German attempt by Gable. Ricochet comes in with the recoil. He tries to go for the rolling German again, but Ciampa ends up hitting the Famouser, so he didn't hit it yet. And then Gable out of nowhere goes for the rolling German on Ciampa, and he actually succeeds in hitting it, and we get a cover, and Chad Gable gets the win, and he will be facing Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. Overall, man, this was a phenomenal opener to kick off Raw. Again, it was fast-paced, just action, 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 and that is what you really want in an opening match on any type of wrestling show. And I praise WWE for really, for letting just Ricochet and everybody else just give it their all and just really get their shit in the way that it needs to be. I really enjoyed this match. Gable absolutely deserves the push that he's getting. Now, a lot of people on the internet are saying Gable should be the guy to dethrone Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. In my opinion, that is not far-fetched at all. I think Gable at this point, after the 5-minute challenge that they did last week on Raw, I think Gable is they're really positioning Gable as really an unstoppable force. I mean, he's always been so good in the ring, but he's also very charismatic on the microphone, and he's very entertaining. If you really think about it, he's kind of the total package. He's always been treated creatively as a comedy wrestler. Remember Shorty G? Yeah, that was embarrassing, but Alpha Academy, man, say what you want about him, but they've gotten super over with the audience, that the audience just gravitates towards Alpha Academy, and they absolutely love Alpha Academy. A large portion of that has to do with Maxine Dupree being involved in the group, but you can't deny, the charisma of Chad Gable as well as the charisma of Otis. And now Chad Gable is really going into his own and really becoming a top singles guy, especially after last week, which I really liked. I think Gable, honestly, if you think about it, I think he should beat Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. Would it make sense on a storyline perspective? Maybe not, but honestly, I wouldn't be mad if Gable was the guy to do it. After that, we get a video package of Brock Lesnar versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. After that, Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, and Seth Rollins are arguing backstage. Seth Rollins does not want to team up with Cody Rhodes. Of course, Sami is trying to basically chill everybody out. Says, we have a chance to deal with the Judgment Day. Can we do it? Cody says, I'm cool. And he asks Seth if he is cool, and Seth says, yeah, I'm cool, and then leaves. A little bit of tension there going on with Seth Rollins, probably because of the fact that he can't stand the fact that Cody beat him 3 fucking times. We then get a video package of Roman Reigns taking on Jey Uso at SummerSlam. Meanwhile, The Miz is backstage. He's getting ready for a photo shoot, but the assistant says he needs to wait. And all of a sudden, Miz is like, why? I'm literally a fucking megastar. I am The Miz, for fuck's sakes. And then all of a sudden, the camera pans, and it shows LA Knight getting his photo shoot. Mr. LA Knight, one of the most popular, if not the most popular actor right now on WWE television, setting the stage for what we were going to be seeing later on this show between The Miz and LA Knight. After that, we got Shinsuke Nakamura taking on Bronson Reed. Relatively short match. We got a shoulder tackle by Bronson Reed. Reed mocks Shinsuke Nakamura. Later on, Shinsuke kind of does his own thing, kind of returning the favor to Bronson Reed. He drives his boot into the corner. Shinsuke goes for a boot, and then he ends up hitting the baseball slide. Reed lands on the announce table, but then on the outside, Reed shoves Shinsuke away and goes back into the ring. Once we're back into the ring, Reed catches Shinsuke Nakamura, but then Shinsuke runs into Bronson Reed. Later on, Reed drags Shinsuke and picks him up with the running powerbomb, or running power slam, I believe it was. Later on in the match, Shinsuke drives his knee on Bronson, but then Bronson picks up and drives Shinsuke down to the mat. We get a cover into kick out by Sheamus, but then Reed takes Shinsuke for a powerbomb. Shinsuke escapes, and then we get the high kick by Shinsuke, barely getting him. After that, we get a clothesline by Reed, but then Bronson goes to the top. goes for the tsunami, but he misses. I will say Wade Barrett on commentary sells the tsunami 10 times better than Corey Graves. That is actually something I want to mention. I completely forgot to mention at the top of the review, but there is a new commentary team, and it's the SmackDown commentary team. Michael Cole's now going to be doing double duty. He's going to be working both Raw and SmackDown. And honestly, that is the best position for him because if you think about it, Michael Cole has gotten so much better. We all knew he was good, but with Vince McMahon in his ear, like he just didn't really, he didn't really come across as likable, when it comes to his commentary. But now with Triple H at the helm, his commentary has just skyrocketed. And now, you can tell Michael Cole really loves his job. So he really does deserve everything he's getting. But nonetheless, we got a new commentary team. It's the SmackDown commentary team with Wade Barrett and Michael Cole. And I will say, man, Michael Cole and Wade Barrett made this show 100 times easier for me to digest and watch. Just because of the fact that Michael Cole at least knows what he's talking about and actually has personality. Same thing as Wade Barrett. Wade Barrett is a phenomenal color commentator. I love how, he busts the balls of Michael Cole so much that it's just entertaining to listen to. And when it comes to the tsunami spot, of course, which eventually Bronson Reed missed, Wade Barrett just sold this whole tsunami spot 10 times better than Corey Graves. Not to say Corey Graves sells the tsunami very, very badly, because he sells it very good, but there's nothing like listening to Wade Barrett just sell a particular move, especially a move like the tsunami. So yeah, hats off to Wade Barrett. Then Shinsuke ends up going for the Kinshasa on the back, and then he hits the Kinshasa from the front, and we get a cover, and Shinsuke Nakamura wins the match. Shinsuke Nakamura is not done, though, when it comes to all the events that happen on this show. Maxine Dupree, yes, Miss Maxine, Miss Alpha Academy is backstage. Ludwig Kaiser comes in. And one thing I will genuinely miss on Monday Night Raw regarding the commentary is Corey Graves mocking Ludwig Kaiser on commentary. That was hilarious. He says, the Ring General will wipe all over Chad Gable's body in the next match. But he has his eyes on you, or I've had my eyes on you for a couple of weeks now. Some people around here are just people. Maxine later on gets pissed off, and she slaps Ludwig Kaiser. And Kaiser, of course, sells the slap. Of course, it's a fucking slap. It fucking hurts. And he turns around, and it's Otis. Otis challenges him to a match, and Kaiser says he will see him, and he will see Maxine again. Ludwig Kaiser, the classy man, going after Maxine Dupree. It's not going to lead to anything. I'll say that. I'll tell you that right now. If this was Vince McMahon running the show, they'd fucking have Ludwig Kaiser just fucking make out with Maxine Dupree right now. You know for a fact they would have done that shit. We got a Becky Lynch segment. She says, the man has come around to Minneapolis. Lads, she is so close to the end. It's been months of doing everything in her power. She's been fighting, talking, scratching, winning and losing, and overcoming obstacles and failing again and again and again, and she is tired. But she is hopeful and ready to put an end to the saga when she finally gets her rematch next week against Trish Stratus. I'm going to pause right there. SummerSlam went way too long, and you deadass had people on the internet complain that Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch was not going to take place at SummerSlam. I'm telling you guys right now, Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch not being on the SummerSlam card was the right decision to make. Not only because of the fact of the show being way too long than it already was, but the fact that the whole feud itself is completely forgettable and one of the worst feuds on WWE TV right now. Pure garbage. That's what that feud was. That's all I'm going to say about that. The greatest of that generation versus the greatest of this generation, and the next generation, the next, and the next, and the next, until infinity. With no interference, no Zoey Stark, no just throwing gigs and tossing pigs. And then Zoey Starks comes out. I can still call her Zoey Starks. It's Zoey Stark. Zoey Stark comes out. Of course, she says, whoa, obsessed. It's been over long enough. Trish already beat her. I already beat you. But you know what this is? Becky Lynch, the man, is scared of Zoey Stark. Getting her banned from ringside, the man left her balls back at home. Becky questions, saying, what are you doing? I know how good you are. You are gifted. You're too good for her own good. Of course, she's talking about Trish's own good. Or she's too good for her own good. She's talking about Zoey, of course. And, of course, she says she wanted it easy, and she's too stupid, no matter how good she is, to realize that she's been dragging her, that being Trish, she's been dragging her in the wrong direction. Zoey says that she doesn't play second fiddle to anyone. And, of course, she is damn right. She is amazing at what she does, and she calls Becky Lynch jealous. Yeah, jealous. That's what I said. Because she's mad that the greatest of all time, is on her side. She picked her, and now she is the fastest rising star in WWE. Really? I did not know that, man. I do not know a lot of people that actually watch the show for Zoey Starks. Holy shit. Wow, really? Wow, is she a draw? Whatever. Moving on. And she is the baddest in this locker room. She mastered this game. Then Shayna Baszler come out. Thank Christ. I can't bear to listen to Zoey Stark on the microphone. Becky says she's looking rough. Shayna says you should see how Ronda looks tonight. Except, but you won't because she beat her and drove her out of WWE. The crowd then cheers. Talks about how she was originally invited, but she thinks she was referencing her. And then she goes to the face of Zoey Stark and she says, who is the baddest now? Zoey says she's the baddest punching bag of all time. She will send her home with her bags just like Ronda Rousey. And then Becky Lynch, who is basically, watching this whole thing play out, she's like, I got an idea. She can't think of a better time to fight right here and right now. Adam Pearce, make this official for all the good people. Adam Pearce then comes out, brings out a referee, and the match is official. We got Zoey Stark and Shayna Baszler one-on-one. We go to commercial break. Once we're back from break, we see Finn Balor and JD McDonagh backstage. This was actually a very interesting segment because we haven't seen JD McDonagh in a while with Finn Balor. We knew that they were teasing JD McDonagh potentially joining Judgment Day. But, they kind of halted on that a little bit. Probably because, again, they either had no long-term direction or either Vince McMahon just came in and basically kind of fucked all those plans up as they usually would do with everything else. Damian Priest comes in and he says this is for Judgment Day business. But Balor says, anything you want to say, you can say it in front of JD McDonagh as well. I've known him for 20 years, and he has heard it all. Priest asks, what's up? Why didn't you come out with us? What is going on? And Finn says he decided to make his own plans. On Saturday, he didn't stick to the plan. And then Priest says he went out there for Balor to win the World Heavyweight Championship, but he went and tried to help, but at the end of the day, Balor, you lost. Balor says, maybe it's because of you that I lost. Finn then says that contract is crowding both of them. Rhea then comes in. She's trying to be in the center of both of them. Rhea says Priest was there to help him. We were all there to help Finn Balor. And they need to get on the same page. You understand? Both agree. And then JD McDonagh comes in. And he says, I know it's not my place, but I think that briefcase is going between both of them. And maybe you should get rid of it. Interesting. Maybe you should get rid of it. JD McDonagh, of course, teased with Finn Balor. I assume this is probably for him to join Judgment Day, which I think it's pretty much expected. JD McDonagh, joining Judgment Day, it just makes total sense. And the story is there. He's known Finn Balor for a long ass time. For me, I would much rather prefer them adding another member than just replacing a member, but this is WWE. Of course, Damian Priest now has the Money in the Bank contract. We do not know what the long-term plan for Damian Priest and the Money in the Bank contract is going to be, but I'm very intrigued. This Judgment Day storyline is definitely working out for the better. We got Zoey Stark versus Shayna Baszler. Nothing really much happened. It was a pretty long match, but I didn't really care as much. Becky Lynch was sitting next to the announce table. I believe she was drinking lemonade. And she even mocked Triple H's water spit. I remember as a kid, I used to, mock but pretend that I was Triple H. I'd be at the fucking dinner table, and I'd fucking grab I got water right here, and I'd literally just spit it out, acting like freaking Triple H. It was freaking badass, and I can do a water spit. Definitely, I can definitely do a water split. I said, Jesus Christ, I can't fucking speak. I can do a water spit properly. I could easily do it right now, but I got a review to do. So I'm not gonna do it, but I got my drink right over here. Becky Lynch does her own water split. So Zoey misses a kick. Shayna goes for repeated clotheslines. We get a running knee by Shayna into the corner. She follows up with the German suplex, and then she goes for a sliding kick. We get a cover by Shayna into near fall. Shayna misses a knee. Zoey goes for a kick. Later on in the match, Shayna goes for a gunt wrench. Zoey then drives her elbow off the top. Shayna catches her for the Caravita clutch, but then it gets taken to the outside. Zoey faces off with Becky, but then she gets distracted by Becky. Shayna regains control, but then Zoey targets Shayna's injured arm, which basically she was doing throughout the majority of the whole match. Shayna then picks up Zoey, and then she hits the world's baddest slam, which is what Michael was calling that. And we get a cover, and Shayna Baszler wins the match. Nothing really special happened. I could care less about the direction of Shayna Baszler because of the fact that the match between Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler at SummerSlam was not good whatsoever. And Zoey Stark, look, I think Zoey Stark is phenomenal in the ring, but when it comes to her promo work is honestly the weakest thing in her arsenal right now. Like, bro, every time when I listen to Zoey Stark speak, it's just mad cringeworthy. I can even remember a couple of weeks ago where Zoey completely exposed herself about how bad she was on the microphone. She's like, I'm going to make you famous. As soon as she said that, they didn't sell me at all on Zoey Stark. That's just my opinion. We got a backstage interview with Shinsuke Nakamura. Says he's tired of people getting in his way. Tonight, he got his way. And from now on, he curves his own path. Meanwhile, nothing Shinsuke Nakamura related. Camera pans to JD McDonagh attacking Sami Zayn. The seeds are starting to get planted for JD McDonagh potentially joining Judgment Day in replacement maybe of Damian Priest. Who knows? They're starting to play those developments right here as we speak. After that, we got Otis, not Otis. Otis taking on Ludwig Kaiser of Imperium. That was my Ludwig Kaiser impression, ladies and gentlemen. This was a relatively short match. Of course, Maxine was on the outside. Kaiser's looking at Maxine. The match starts. That was basically the whole fucking story throughout the majority of the match. Kaiser is just completely interested. And I don't want to say simping, but he kind of is. You know, he kind of has a thing for Maxine Dupree. And you know how WWE is when it comes to relationship angles. They will fucking go forward with that shit. They don't give a fuck. All right. Otis is no longer selling, I said no longer selling. He is no selling Ludwig Kaiser when it comes to his repeated right hands. Otis goes for repeated right hands. Later on, Kaiser ducks and lands into the turnbuckle. We get a running kick by Kaiser, but then Kaiser goes for repeated right hands. Maxine is on the apron. Otis comes in, hits rights and lefts. Otis bumps Kaiser into the corner. We get a follow-away slam, followed by a splash into the corner by Otis. Otis then sets up the caterpillar, but Giovanni Vinci comes in, and he hits a suplex, that being Otis hitting a suplex on Vinci, but then the Intercontinental Champion Gunther comes out, and he takes him out, and what happens is the referee's not looking, so it did not end in a disqualification. Kaiser comes in, hits an Itsugiri, and we get a cover, and Ludwig Kaiser wins the match. After the match, Imperium attacks Otis, and then Chad Gable comes in for the save. And then Gable, of course, is standing tall with the crowd just absolutely loving Chad Gable. I think they got a little bit of a star in their hands with Mr. Chad Gable, man. Match between Gunther and Gable, the rematch is going to be fucking awesome to see. If they pull the plug and they pull the trigger on Gable winning the Intercontinental Championship, honestly, I wouldn't be upset about that whatsoever. Because Gunther will still look strong at the end of the day. We got a backstage interview with Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. Both men speak, and then they stop. Cody then is like, Seth, you take this interview. And Seth says he doesn't know if he can trust Cody. But then Shinsuke comes in, and he offers help for Seth Rollins. Moving on, we got 100% the best thing on this entire Raw show. Of course, I am talking about The Miz. You guys know my deal about The Miz. I think The Miz is great. One of the best heels in the business. But my biggest criticism that I have of The Miz is not The Miz's work on his own. Like, his own work, that's not where my problems lie. My problems always lie with the way that they, view The Miz or the way that they would treat The Miz in a creative standpoint. When it comes to a creative standpoint, The Miz has been nothing but a comedy act. I mean, for fuck's sakes, every time when The Miz comes out, everybody's chanting tiny balls. They're still doing that, which is crazy to think. Remember 2016 Miz? I will always, for every week on the Raw review, when Miz comes out, I will always mention 2016 Miz because it was the best version of The Miz. And I think that version of The Miz could really be needed on WWE television right now. But you can tell in this promo, Miz was pissed off. Miz was pissed, and he says, "Am I missing something? What happened to showing your industry leaders the proper respect?" Here he comes to Raw to find a guy we absolutely love in, of course, LA Knight, taking the priority over him. He's a veteran. He is a locker room leader. When he started out in the WWE, he was an outcast. He was taught respect, and when you come in the locker room, you introduce yourself and you shake hands and you pay respect to those who paved the way for you. Of course, that is Wrestling Etiquette 101. Of course, if you're any wrestler, even now, I think the number one thing you should do when you enter any locker room is shake everybody's hand as a sign of respect. And no, wrestlers do not steal other wrestlers' moves. A lot of wrestlers tend to do that. You don't introduce yourself, and he didn't shake his hand. Of course, he's talking about LA Knight. And he is sick and tired of the lack of respect of the so-called crop of new talent. Then Mr. LA Knight, yeah, that's not an insult. That is just a fact of life. This man comes out. Of course, we get a bunch of LA Knight chants by the audience. The audience loves Mr. LA Knight. Let me talk to you. He thought that they got a great introduction at SummerSlam, but if that didn't work, allow me to introduce myself, and everybody's saying LA Knight, yeah. And he offers a handshake. Miz is like, no. Really, let's be honest. When MJF, gets shit on by the crowd, of course, since he's a heel, or when the crowd would chant, shut the fuck up to MJF, MJF would casually, and this is what makes him so good, MJF would casually be like, no. Miz is just like, no. You don't deserve to shake his hand. You don't think he sees stars come into WWE? The way he sees it, you take away the mic, or you take away the Miz, and what you take away is his success, his fame, his money. You strip away everything, charisma, everything. He's a flash of the pan. He's the flavor of the month, and all these people love you right now, even for the next 5 months because they think he is it. He has it. But he's an Attitude Era fanboy playing cosplay in the ring. And we get a bunch of tiny balls chants. LA Knight says, so no handshake. And he says he doesn't have a problem with him, but you do not want to make this personal. Miz says he takes his career personal. He took it personal when he started. He mentions his accolades. He made himself indestructible for 20 years. What have you done for the past 20 years? LA Knight says, so personal it is. What have I been doing? I've been making myself a dangerous man. What does that mean? He's been clawing and scratching on the outside with this place bet on all the wrong horses, with you being one of them. Meanwhile, on the outside, writing his own path for the right opening and waiting for the right opening. Here he is with a 20-year head start, and he got it because he is safe. They knew they could smack you around, and of course, what you did was you took it. I am a dangerous man. They knew that when I came here. You want to smack me around? Nah. He's not to be messed with. That's the difference between you and me. You still became every single champion in the WWE. You're a Grand Slam champion, and he did it many times over. I haven't been there yet, but my career is going up, and your career is going on the damn toilet. Yeah, but I'll tell you what. Look at what you gained. Tell you what. If you want to make this personal, he calls him a stepping stone, and later on he's talking about him walking him in the main event. Miz then says he isn't on his level. LA Knight says, that's an interesting theory, but I'm looking dead in your eyes. Why don't you prove me wrong? Because I ain't going anywhere. Miz then takes off his jacket. And it looks like, of course, he's going to go after LA Knight, but he doesn't because, of course, he is a heel. But Miz throws the jacket instead with the cheap shot on LA Knight. Goes after LA Knight. He sets up the skull-crushing finale, but LA Knight counters into the BFT, the blunt force trauma, and the segment ends. Overall thoughts on this segment. This was a great segment. I loved this segment. Everything about this was fucking perfect. If you want to give something for LA Knight to do, The Miz is definitely the perfect feud for you to do that. Say what you want about The Miz, but The Miz, in any situation that you would put him in, even if it was a situation that is very shitty, he'd still make it work. And with LA Knight feuding with The Miz, honestly, I'm not mad about that. We all know LA Knight is going to go over in this feud, but nonetheless, this was amazing. LA Knight definitely, stood his ground and really just showcased how good he really is, if you guys don't already know that. But The Miz, he's great for what he does, but in my opinion, I always had a problem with his booking and the way creatively how they treated him. But I feel like I had that Miz seriousness. He had that Miz seriousness in him, that 2016 Miz in him for a little bit. Not a lot, but he still had some of that in there, so I really liked that. But nonetheless, this was a phenomenal segment. The Viking Raiders are, of course, in action. And who are their opponents? Their opponents, don't you dare be sour. Clap for your world-famous tag team champions and feel the power. The New Day, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston are back to a huge pop. I loved this. It's great to see the New Day back. I believe both of them suffered an injury. I do not know the nature of the situation. I completely forgot. But they finally came back from their injury. And, man, I felt like I haven't seen the New Day in a long-ass time. I don't know how long it has been, but it's definitely been a long-ass time. Another thing. The New Day has literally been a thing since 2014. We're now headed on 10 years of the New Day. I don't know about y'all, but I'm starting to get a little bit old. That's the funny thing. Let's go through the match real quick. The match starts. Woods and Eric start the match. The New Day continue for the double team. Valhalla's on the apron. The Raiders regain control. We get a spinning kick by Ivar. Then later on in the match, they hit a splash. The Raiders are in control. Later on, we get a tornado DDT by Woods. Kofi and Ivar tag in. We get a drop kick by Kofi, and then he takes down Ivar. Kofi goes for the crossbody, and then Kofi ends up going for the boom drop. Then goes for the SOS. And then after that, later on in the match, Kofi counters Eric with a Hurricane Rana. Then we get a kick to the side of the face of Ivar. Woods is the legal man. He goes to the top, hits the Trouble in Paradise. Kofi then goes for the senton, and then we get the limit break elbow drop by Xavier Woods. We get a cover, and New Day win the match. New Day coming in couldn't have been a better time than now. I genuinely believe the WWE Tag Team division is struggling a little bit, and I think with New Day being a part, finally making their return, I genuinely believe that the Tag Team division will be better off for it, because the biggest problem with WWE's Tag Team division right now, in my opinion at least, is that there is a lack of depth in the Tag Team division. AEW is even struggling with their Tag Team division. If you think about it, compared to when the company first started, their Tag Team division hasn't been the same at all. Same thing as their women's division. But nonetheless, WWE really wants to start building up the Tag Team division. You definitely got the New Day a part of that. Becky Lynch in a backstage interview. Shayna Baszler comes in. She says she doesn't need her help, but now, of course, she has to settle the scores, or she has some kind of scores to settle. And, of course, she says she will be coming to the man sooner rather than later. And then Becky replies, she is not hard to find. After that, we got the New Day in a backstage interview. Their returns feel new. They are the gods of the Tag Team division. See, what's going on with the Street Profits and the Usos breaking up? Their goal is becoming the new WWE World Tag Team Champions. Because you know why? New Day rocks. New Day rocks. Great stuff by the New Day. I'm glad they're back. Judgment Day. Finn Balor, Damian Priest, and, of course, Dirty Dominik, the NXT North American Champion, Dominik Shit Stereo, takes on Cody Rhodes. Seth Rollins, the World Heavyweight Champion, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Originally, it was supposed to be Sami Zayn joining Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, but of course, Sami Zayn got attacked by JD McDonagh. Raquel Rodriguez comes in and attacks Rhea when Judgment Day were making their entrance, and a brawl breaks loose. Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell come in, but the brawl continues. Once we're back from commercial break, everything is calmed down, and the match begins. Baszler starts. Priest tags himself in, and both men face off against one another, so you can tell the tension is really brewing between both of these guys. Dominik then tags himself in. Very noble, Mr. Dirty Dom. Starts with Shinsuke. Shinsuke then drives his boot on Dominik. We get a cover by Shinsuke into near fall. Dom later retreats to the outside. Later on in the match, Baszler drives Shinsuke onto the spine. We get a leg drop by Priest, who is now the legal man. We get a cover and a kick out. We then get an enziguri by Shinsuke Nakamura. Seth Rollins tags in. Works on every member of the Judgment Day. We then get a sling blade by Seth Rollins. He tries to pick up Priest, but then Priest counters. But then Rollins counters back into the Falcon Arrow. Later on, Rollins goes for a springboard, but lands into a right hand by Damian Priest. Baszler later on in the match goes for a running shotgun dropkick on Rollins, landing him onto the barricade. Once we're back from commercial break, Dominik is in control. Goes for the Three Amigos. Dominik takes out Shinsuke, but then Rollins fights back. Rollins then tags Cody, but then Cody takes everybody out. Cody goes for the disaster kick. We then get a power slam by Rhodes on Baszler, but then he sets up the crossroads. Baszler counters back. Baszler then sets up the Cody cutter, or counters the Cody cutter, I should say. Takes him down, but then we get a cover by Baszler and a near fall. Baszler runs into a kick by Cody. Cody cutter by Cody Rhodes. After that, we get a cover into near fall when Dominik makes the save. Priest comes in. He takes out Shinsuke, but then Rollins comes in. Seth runs the ropes, but then Baszler takes him to the outside. Cody then sets up crossroads, but then Priest hits Cody with the briefcase from behind without the referee looking. Sami Zayn comes in out of nowhere after being attacked by JD McDonagh. Comes in and attacks everybody. He attacks Damian Priest. Baszler has the briefcase, but then Rollins hits a kick on Baszler. Then Cody goes for the crossroads. We get a cover, and Cody wins the match. After the match, everybody celebrates. Then Seth argues with Cody, and what happens is Sami, as Michael Cole would say, is the peacemaker. But after that, after Seth Rollins, of course, celebrates going up the second rope, after Seth Rollins goes down the ropes, Shinsuke immediately hits the Kinshasa on Seth Rollins, setting up a feud between Shinsuke Nakamura and Seth Rollins. Now, the rumor right now is that Seth Rollins is going to be defending his World Heavyweight Championship against Shinsuke Nakamura. Honestly, I'm not really mad about that, because Shinsuke Nakamura, he hasn't really been in a high-profile feud. I mean, really, he's been main events of pay-per-views maybe in like 2017, but really after that, what really has Shinsuke Nakamura been doing? Yeah, he won the Intercontinental title there and there, but really, what has he been doing? Really hasn't been doing a lot. And honestly, again, it's storyline progression, and honestly, I'm not really that upset about it, because again, we're just going to have to wait and see what goes on later on. But it is what it is. Shinsuke turns heel from what it looks like. I mean, he's been a heel for a while, but Shinsuke, it looks like he's turned heel. And now he will face Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. Will Seth Rollins lose the world title to Shinsuke Nakamura? Honestly, I do not see that being the case. It's either Finn Balor or Damian Priest or Gunther. Those are the three guys that I see potentially beating Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. Is a guy like Shinsuke going to win? I doubt it. I would love for Shinsuke to win, but if you look at it from a creative standpoint, it just wouldn't make any sense. But it looks like they set up a match at Payback, which is the next pay-per-view, which is going to take place in Pittsburgh. And honestly, I'm very intrigued to see what goes on in that match. But yeah, that was my Monday Night Raw review from August 7th, 2023. Overall thoughts on this show, I thought this was a pretty good episode of Raw, to say the least. I really enjoyed this show. Much better than a lot of the previous weeks, to say the least. I digested the show way easier, mainly because of Michael Cole and Wade Barrett. A lot of things made sense on the show. There were some other things that I just didn't really care about, but they are what they are. But nonetheless, this was a pretty good show to close off Monday Night Raw. But yeah, as always, this is Flamin' Rick from the WrestleHavoc Podcast. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications. I'm going to look out for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the friggin' referee would say, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Rick, Ricky DeRays, signing out. I'll see you guys later. Peace.